I'm Jill Dyche, and we're here at the Pacific Northwest BI Summit, and I'm with Glen Rabie. He's the CEO and co-founder of Yellowfin. Welcome, Glen. It's your first time at the summit.
It is the first time.
Yeah. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about collaborative BI with Glen, and maybe we can start out by you just giving a little bit of history and background on Yellowfin.
Yeah, so we started in 2003, and basically I was working on a large BI deployment and just looked at that stage the tool we were using, the cost and complexity of that, and trying to roll it out to, which was 300 people at that point in time, and it sort of kind of informed us, and we said, well, there's got to be a better way, and that was the start of Yellowfin.
Wow. And so when you look at the BI landscape and when you were starting Yellowfin, what was missing?
Yeah, so back then the really core issue was around cost and complexity. So the tools that existed at the time were very, very expensive and really inhibited. So this organization that I was talking about had 50,000 people in it, but we only had enough budget to roll out to 300. The question was, well, why? What's stopping us? And so at that stage, we sort of looked and said, well, to build a single integrated platform that you could easily deploy to a much larger audience was the key. And really, the market's changed significantly since then. I mean, that was quite a number of years ago. In the last 5 years, we've just seen so much change. Yeah,
I was going to ask you what the market looks like right now.
Yeah, so so back then, I mean, we were probably really early on in going to the web. So the first original Yellowfin has always been a browser-based application, and so what we've seen since then is just this huge shift in people's expectation of BI. So we're seeing much larger deployments, and the end user's expectation is largely driven by their external experiences. So what they're experiencing with Google Analytics or Facebook, and they're bringing that kind of usability and sociability into the workplace and saying, well, why isn't our BI tool doing the same thing? And so that's really kind of where we're heading.
Yeah. And so what business problems is Yellowfin solving for your customers?
So the fundamental one for us is still this: how do we deploy to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people? So what do you need in place to be able to do that? And that's sort of the base level. But beyond that is, once you've done that, what do you actually need to make it really usable for those people? So if I've rolled it out to 1,000 people, how do they actually interact with their data? What are they going to do? How are they going to interact with each other now that they've got access to this information? And so from our perspective, we try and really drive user adoption. So we're driving a higher ROI out of a BI solution, and that's getting people engaged with the platform. And so something that's really easy to use, that you can roll out really effectively, and that people actually want to interact with,
yep.
That's what we try and do.
Yeah. And who are those users? Can you typify some of them?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. So when I started in BI, we had this concept that, at the one end you've got like Crystal Reports, on the other end you've got SaaS analytics, but there's a whole range of user experiences in between that. And so for us, who we focus on is what we call the BI consumer, is typically speaking people whose job it is not to analyze data, but they're there to do something within the organization. They've got a specific task at hand. And so this audience for us are people who want to interact with data, but they don't have the time or inclination to actually create content. So they are people who want to know how they're performing, they want to improve their performance, and they work within a team environment, so they're going to share information, and that's our core audience.
Yeah. And if you remember, I used you guys as an example in my Harvard Business Review blog, and I was struggling to find an actual example of a collaborative BI tool. And why do you think that is? Why don't you think some of the other vendors have actually, introduced collaboration into their BI products and their portfolios?
Yeah, I think there's on the one hand is legacy. So they're stuck with platforms that don't particularly scale outwards in terms of new functionality. So that's very difficult for them to introduce new functionality into that. And so what you're seeing is some vendors trying to plug in another third-party application around that. Whereas for us, and this was quasi-accidental, I wish we've been strategic at the start and thought about it a bit great, but it did happen really well for us, that we do have this kind of outwardly scalable platform. And so as we saw the shifting environment where people becoming far more socially engaged at work and wanting to collaborate, and collaborate in a huge variety of ways. So, from annotating data to commenting on reports to making decisions and sharing in different ways, not just via email but on the web. We were able to do that and to kind of react to what's happening, I think, at the marketplace. And I think that ultimately, all vendors are going to be pushed down this path. It's, we just happen to be there really early on. And I think it's inevitable that as organizations become more collaborative, more social, that every vendor's going to have a story around this.
Yeah, well, and we were talking today at the BI Summit, actually, this morning. One of the conversation topics was around collaboration, and we all agreed that it's a fundamental human need. So this is the technology that's actually going to enable collaboration and that human social need on the desktop.
Yeah, and look, it's beyond the desktop as well. So I think, as part of this conversation, clearly, we were, from our perspective from Yellowfin, a lot of our collaboration was actually driven through the development of the mobile platform.
Yep.
So as we started to roll out our mobile solution, we watched people interacting with that. You could actually see them kind of come to a halt and go, well, what do I do next? And that was that collaboration piece about how do I share it from here, how do I interact with it? And so a lot of our browser capabilities actually been built after we built the mobile collaboration, and we've pushed it back into the browser. So
it's not just the desktop, it's at the bedside, in the store, in the branch, on the trading floor.
It is. It's like, you think about a lot of people start their day, they roll over and they grab their phone and they start browsing that content. And for us, your BI content is just any other content that you're going to use in that way.
Cool. Well, you know what? Welcome to the BI Summit. It's great to have you here. It's great to have collaboration technology here. This is Jill Dyche and Glen Rabie talking to you from the Pacific Northwest BI Summit in Grants Pass, Oregon, signing out.